afternoon, welcome to the Homestead. We've got a lot of produce that has been in the house for probably about 6 months now. These onions and these potatoes have held on for a very long time, but as you can see, they're starting to go. So we're going to be freeze drying them to save our harvest today. We're also going to be freeze drying some smoothies because we had a lot of bananas, we made some smoothies, and now we just could not drink them all. So having a powdered smoothie on hand for travels, hiking, camping, backpacking, whatever it is going to be a great treat. If you are out on a homestead and you are trying to be more self-sufficient, one thing you need to do is preserve a decent amount of food for your family to eat. That's because if you have a bad year in the garden, you're going to need to dive into those stores to feed your family. On our homestead, we implement many different preservation methods, and I've gone over those in the past in many different videos. If you're interested in those, click on the link at the top of the screen. We freeze things, we can things, we dehydrate things, we do a lot of different stuff. But one method that we absolutely love and that will keep your food around for a long period of time is a freeze dryer. We've had this for a while now, and we freeze dried a lot of food, and that has been a huge blessing because I know that that food is going to be there for me 10 years down the road if I need it. And this Harvest Right freeze dryer that we have has worked perfectly well for us. If you're interested in something like this, we've got a link in the description below that you can go click on. It'll take you to their website and you can check them out. I think like every other company right now, they have a Black Friday deal. I think theirs is going on for the whole month of November, and it might be something like $500 off. This is how we normally store our onions, and as you can see, their time is pretty much up. There are some that haven't sprouted, but they are starting to sprout. So we need to get these chopped up and in the freeze dryer. This room stays cold, but not freezing. So it's a perfect environment for them, but after a certain amount of time, they are just going to sprout out. And then these are our potatoes, and we do wrap them in paper and keep them in this same room, this cool room. And many of them are still nice and hard, though they are starting to sprout eyes. And that's fine if we are still going to eat them, or if we are going to keep them and grow them in the early spring next year. So these will keep around just fine. But I do want to get some of these in that freeze dryer to preserve them for an even longer period of time. We've got a ton of extra bananas that we need to get made into these smoothies. And like I said, we just can't eat them right now, and they are great for having on a trip, hiking, camping, whatever it is. Just mix it with water and you're all set. Now I've seen people make powders out of the freeze-dried bananas and powders out of the other separate ingredients. But why do that? You can just mix everything together in your smoothie, pour it onto the tray, freeze dry it, powder that, and then you've got your smoothie all set and ready to go. All you need to do is add water. You don't have to mix all the ingredients together. So even though we're going to add milk to this, I'm going to make it a consistency that is fairly thick. And then later you can add a little bit more water to it if you want to thin it out, depending on how you like your smoothie. I personally like them a little thinner. But when you add the almond milk to the smoothie and incorporate it all together, it's going to dehydrate faster than if you try to dehydrate almond milk and make almond milk powder. That takes forever, especially if you've got a thinner, more natural, organic almond milk like this. It doesn't have all those thickening gums in it, which I cannot stand. So putting it in the smoothie, it's going to make it a lot easier. We've got some blueberries here that we picked from a local blueberry farm, because if you didn't see my last video on the garden and how we have been killing our fruit trees and our garden with high sodium content well water, you should go check that out at the top of the screen. Drop in our almond milk. You can see that consistency there is what I like, and it will dehydrate well at this consistency. Usually one of these small carafes for the Vitamix is good for one tray. Now you may need a piece of parchment paper on your freeze drying tray. We don't have parchment paper that goes all the way to the end, but something like this with a decent amount of sugar in it from the bananas in the fruit obviously may tend to stick, but you can still get it up. It's really not that big of a deal. And I usually don't have a big issue with freeze drying things like sauces and stuff like that. It usually comes out just fine, but those sauces are usually savory and have some oil in them. and this is sweet and sugary, so it will be a bit different. Time to get this one in the freezer, and then we'll start chopping our onions and potatoes. All right, we're gonna strip down these onions and get this paper off of here. These outside layers are really starting to break down, so they're kind of soft. So you might need to peel back some of these other layers, depending on how old your onions are or how quickly they're starting to sprout. But we are going to save these for the long term with that freeze dryer. We'll just give these a large dice here, and that should be good for whatever we use it for in the future. That's only 2 onions. I got a bunch more to go. Thankfully, I'm finally done with those onions and I've stopped crying. Now onto the potatoes. So what I'm going to do with these is just dice them. And that's going to give me a lot of versatility in using them in soups or maybe for home fries or something like that when I thaw them out. Then for anyone that's got a little, say, bug damage on it like this one, just cut it off and you're good to go. This tray holds about 8 medium-sized potatoes. Now it's time to get them in our chest freezer to freeze them before we freeze dry them. And inside the freeze dryer right now, we've got some frozen leftover meals. Freeze drying these is a great way to save them long term if you've made way too much for your family like I usually do. So that's definitely another money saver. You're saving these for long term, and you're not throwing out any leftovers out of the refrigerator. Let's get these in here and stacked. And usually I can get a few on top. We're good to go. These will take about a day to freeze, but we will see you in a few seconds. All right, we are back. The process is done. Let me shut down the machine so we can hear each other a little bit better. We're gonna open the vent and get the pressure back to normal in the chamber. And we're gonna put it on defrost mode. That's going to shut down that compressor. These are cold but nice and dry. Now we have to package them up. If you can hear that, it's completely dry. It's kind of like styrofoam, which is really cool. That's our smoothie. All we need to do is take this, add milk or water to it, and you will have a nice smoothie once again. I have a video on how to perfectly package freeze-dried food. You can click on that at the top of the screen. I'm not going to show you that again today. If you want to know how to do that and get great results every time, click on that video. Here's our freeze-dried meals. We've got some soy curls, we've got some pasta with some spinach, and we have a nice chickpea recipe that we normally do. I think it's a Peruvian recipe, which is really good with cilantro and tomato sauce, and it's awesome. Here are our styrofoam-like, if you can hear that, styrofoam potatoes. Got to get those packaged up. And our onions are the same way. Look at that. They are so light and fluffy and ready to be packaged and saved for years. Let's take a little bit of our smoothie, add it to a glass, and I'll do a taste test for you. Okay, before I package this up, and I do need to do that quite quickly so the air doesn't get to it, I'm going to put a little bit of this in the glass. Maybe a little bit more than that. So where the parchment paper didn't reach onto the tray, it really didn't stick too badly. It came right off, which is nice. I want to do this quickly because I don't want to let this sit out too long and gain any moisture from the surrounding air. And I do live in Texas, so you have to be very careful about that. I'm only going to pour maybe an ounce to an ounce and a half in here, and then I'm going to check the consistency and the concentration of it. So it is going to depend on how you like your smoothie, like I said earlier, thinner or a little bit thicker. Okay, you can see this consistency here. It's starting to really rehydrate. There's a couple of chunks left in here. It's gonna just take a minute of some stirring and it should be ready to drink. Here's the smoothie. You can see the consistency that I like it. Let's give it a test. It's like I just made it. And you can make it colder, you can put some ice in there, but I did put cold milk in it. So it's even creamier than it would have been with the water, obviously. So I've got twice the amount of milk in there. Check out these beautiful onions, light as a feather. These potatoes, that's the advantage of freeze drying, is that all the water's gone, so they're considerably lighter so that you can store a lot and it doesn't weigh a lot, which is really cool. You can see this is 5 onions and it's going to compact down into something really small. These are going to rehydrate really well, as are the potatoes, especially for soups, like I said. So I've got to get these things packaged. If you have any questions about freeze drying smoothies or anything else, please let me know. Also, if you have any questions about this Harvest Right freeze dryer, let me know those down in the comments section below. Now go click on this video right here, which is our initial setup and review of this Harvest Right freeze dryer. Have a beautiful, blessed day. We'll see you next time. Bye.